everybody, I'm Alicia from My Work Basket. I'm here today to show you a new Tunisian crochet stitch called the Bias Stitch. If you're following me on the crochet along, this is going to be for block D. If you're not following me for the crochet along and you're just here to learn the Tunisian Bias Stitch, I hope you find this video useful. Before we get started with how to do the stitch and the detailed video, I'm going to show you a little bit about Tunisian crochet in general. Tunisian crochet hooks look a little bit different than regular crochet hooks. This is the one that I actually use. It's from an interchangeable set by Denise. This is my favorite set. This is what I use all the time. My ends actually come off and I can change those cable lengths for different things, or even create one long continuous cable if I wanted to, like for double-ended or for working in the round. I also have a sample of, like, if you went to Michael's, Walmart, Hobby Lobby, Joann's, any normal craft store, and you buy an Afghan or Tunisian hook, it's going to look like this. It's just a long crochet hook. It's got the crochet hook on one end, and it looks like a knitting needle on the other side. I have not actually used this kind. I suspect it may be a little different when you get by the end of the row to just kind of have your tension going. And I am going to try that and then do a video and talk about if it worked or not. One thing you'll notice is that the hooks are a little bit larger. When you do worsted weight yarn for regular crochet, you're going to use around about a G hook, give or take. But for Tunisian crochet, you're going to go up several sizes, and you're actually going to use about a J size hook, even on worsted weight yarn. So let's get going. Okay, so we're ready to get started. I'm going to chain 11 the same way you would usually chain for any crochet project. Oop, getting slippy there. 9, 10, and 11. And I always double check. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, and 11. What I'm going to do now is go into my chain, yarn over and pull it up. And the difference between this and regular crochet is that you're going to leave this on the hook. Then you're going to go into the next chain, pick it up, the next chain, pick it up, and you're going to do that all the way across for your project. Now, Tunisian crochet, every row is actually 2 parts. So this is going to be the first part, or pass 1. The first row is usually exactly what I'm doing now, just picking up the stitches and leaving them on the hook to get started. So now I'm going to yarn over. I'm going to go through just 1 chain, then I'm going to yarn over and go through every 2 stitches. And so far in our crochet along, all of the projects have started this exact way, and usually any Tunisian crochet project is going to start this way. What comes next is what causes it to be a different stitch. As you can see, Tunisian crochet leaves these ladders, and we're going to work into those ladders. So the bias stitch is actually a combination of the crossed stitch and the simple stitch. And it's actually a 2-row pattern. So the first row is going to be different than the second row, and that's what creates it. So the first row we're going to do just like we did for crossed stitch. We're going to skip this stitch. You only use this stitch when you're increasing. We're going to skip this stitch. We're going to go under the loop in the 3rd stitch, yarn over and pull up. Then we're going to go back into this 2nd stitch that we skipped. We're going to yarn over and we're going to pull that up. And again, we're going to leave these on the hook. And we're going to do the same thing again. So we're going to skip this one and we're going to go under this one. And then we're going to go backtrack and pick up into the one we missed. Now, if you're a little bit confused by this, I have another video specific for the crossed stitch, and that might help you a little bit. So we're going to skip this one and we're going to go in the next one, pull it up, yarn over, pull it up. And in these last 2, we're going to do the last loop first, then we're going to backtrack into this loop that we missed. And this is the first pass, or the forward pass, of row 1. You'll still have 11 loops on your hook. Now we're going to yarn over, go through just 1 loop, and then yarn over and go through 2 loops all the way across. Yarn over, go through 2 loops, yarn over, go through 2 loops. And now this is the second row. As you can see, our first row has these crossed stitches. So the second row, we're actually going to go into the very first loop, yarn over, pull it up. Then we're going to skip the second and go into the third, yarn over and pull it up. We're going to backtrack into the second. So first you're doing a simple stitch, then you're going into the crossed stitch. So we're going to skip this next one. You're going to yarn over, go up. We're going to backtrack into the one we skipped. As you can tell, this causes the stitches to pass over one. And that's handy to notice for when if you ever have to put your work down and come back to it, you'll be able to tell which row you are on. So we have 3 rows left. We're going to do one more crossed stitch. So we're going to skip one. We're going to backtrack into it, and then we're going to go into the last loop as if we were just doing a simple stitch again. Then we're going to yarn over, go through. Notice how this is making those lines go over. We're going to go through one loop and then yarn over and go through 2 loops all the way across. So that was row 1 again, and now we're going to be back on row 2. As you can see, the loop is over here, so that's kind of a sign that you need to start a new loop. So if you have to put your work down, that's a good sign to show what row you're on. Now we're going to skip one, go over, backtrack. Notice how those loops are moving across. Because again, if you have to put your work down, this makes it a nice easy way to tell which row you're on. So then I'm going to skip the next one, yarn over and go through, backtrack. I'm going to skip one, yarn over, go through, backtrack. I've got 3 left. I'm going to skip one, go through the second one, backtrack, and then I'm going to go into this last chain from the end of my row. Yarn over, go through 1, yarn over, go through 2, someone just knocked the table a little bit, but so far I'm still in view. That's okay. As you can see, when you get to the end of your project, I've done 2 of each row here, you end up with these ladders. And you don't want to finish with these weird ladders. So what you're going to do is actually end it off. And what I like to do is end off my row in pattern. You can just go through, pick up, pull through. I like to, whatever pattern stitch I'm doing, I try to continue it in my last row. So I'm going to skip this first one. I'm going to go in the second one, yarn over, pull through both loops like a slip stitch. I'm going to backtrack to the one I missed, yarn over, pull through both. I'm going to skip one, yarn over, pull through both, backtrack, yarn over, pull through both. Notice how when I do it that way, it still just makes the slip stitches continue in pattern. You can also just go through the next one, yarn over, pull through both, go through the next one, yarn over, pull through both, and that just creates a normal simple stitch. There's nothing wrong with doing it that way. I just prefer the more nice finished edge. So I'm going to pull those 2 sample ones out. I'm going to go ahead, cross over, backtrack, cross over and back, and then backtrack. And again, this is just the usual slip stitch. So I'm pulling it through both loops on my hook to just finish that off. I'm going to get that end loop. I'm going to backtrack. And then as you can see, the pattern goes all the way through. I can now just clip my yarn just like you would with any crochet project. Maybe I need some new scissors there. You're going to yarn over and just pull the loop straight through, and you'll end up with a nice little sample. Now the back of each Tunisian crochet stitch usually does look like some variety of knit, and the back on some of these will be just really kind of bumpy. So my back does look like that. If your back looks a little wonky, don't feel like you've made a mistake. The back does just look different depending on what stitch you've done. Guys, I hope you found that stitch doable. Feel free to go back, rewind, watch the video. If you worked with me, you'll have your little sample. If you didn't work with me, go ahead and rewind back and work along with me as I do the detailed stitches. As always, you can pause and rewind and fast forward through different parts until you get the stitch just right. You'll end up with a little sample square. I'm actually ending up with a lot of sample squares from doing the blanket and doing the videos. So I'm going to make a cat blanket out of mine. You can make whatever you like with yours, or pull them out and do something else with them. If you haven't been at the crochet along already, I'd love to have you join me. It's never too late. The videos are always going to be up. The pattern is free. I'd love to have you. I'd also love to have you visit my website at justmyworkbasket.com, where there's free patterns, crochet alongs, vintage fun finds, and just all sorts of other fun stuff.